the y-axis from the personal, social, organizational, political, governmental, and finally civilizational.
So every time you make a step into the space, you're crossing into one of those zones.
You're cutting into one of those,
and you're going through a zone, but you're now in the territory of another zone.
very good, because just as with the creative process and the way the brainwaves work, you can sort of speed up from being sound asleep to being in the zone, but you have to go through these steps really rapidly, and it's easier to go to the adjacent step.
Did you find a way of like going from one place to another place quickly and been able to stay there?
I have found that, but that's later. So the personal is one person. This is a friends and family and school chums. This is hospitals and organizations in the organizational form. This is federal, state, and local governments. This is the UN and cultures and religions. So it was a generalized Linnaeus-like categorization.
Just a second. Could you give me that again? What axis are we on here?
Why?
Okay, and they relate again to what? The why?
They relate to categorizing people and things.
Okay. Discrimination.
Generalization and discrimination.
Okay.
And
one that's been getting us into so much trouble. The Buddhists believe that we discriminate far too much. Why should we our law is to discriminate continuously, and that's where we end up in great animosity.
It's like that guy, the Buddhist who went into the Burger King and said, you've heard this.
No, I don't know.
Make me one with everything.
Oh right, yeah, that's make me one with everything. Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I mean that's what we want, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, we've gone from an age of specialization in this conceptual age, where it's more balanced, but it's also an age of generalization.
Well, yeah, but we still apply value to the different points in a kind of very discriminating way.
So these 5 steps were personal, social, organizational, political, and civilizational. All along the y-axis, horizontal.
Okay, let's have an example of how this works. So you've got now on the y-axis you've got your personal, social, organization, political, and civilization.
Yeah.
Now, and we're going that way. So if we go,
and the x-axis going out into the future.
So if we say we're on here, which would be the third one here, which should be okay. We're going this way. So it's like, so what's at the front end? Personal, right? Personal first. Is this in order of appearance?
On sideways, going horizontally. Personal.
Okay, this is horizontal.
This is the y horizontal axis.
Okay.
In the depth z axis is the creative process, and that goes from passion, mission, vision, organization, and execution.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So let's just get a set of coordinates going. So with the creative, what's at the first one of the creative again?
Passion.
Passion. Okay. So and the first one on the y-axis is well, it's just
personal.
Personal, right? So there
is both here
personal and passional.
And passion.
Personal and passion.
Yeah.
So what's an example of being aware of that? That which is personal, that which is so it's something that you have discovered in yourself that you haven't discovered anywhere else, and you've developed it into a passion, like a single passion.
I was lying there,
like a sense of individuality, sense of your own nature.
I was lying there in Mass General Hospital, and I had encephalitis, poliomyelitis, respiratory failure, and was given up for dead.
Right. Wow.
My brain was fried.
You made a record of it. Well, is this a book? Oh, it's a book.
My brain was fried. Come in a little closer, Roger. My brain was fried.
Yeah.
My body was immobile, and my mind was delusional and in a coma. When I first came out of the coma, and could make comments. They were playing Olivia Newton-John, "All That I Need Is the Air That I Breathe to Love You." And I began to realize that my brain was not dependable. My body was not useful. And I barely had a delusional mind. And I realized that I was passionate about living.
Yeah. So the reminder that love was going to take you through this.
And love, but it was a very profound sense. I didn't realize how much I loved life.
Right. Yeah. Okay. To be able to love it all.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
And so, we can go back through these. I got so much to cover for you today. We'll get back. But you've got the X dimension and the Y dimension. Now let's look at the Z dimension. Starting down here at the bottom. This is the hierarchical Z axis.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that the mind and the brain are built hierarchically. They're not just all in one spaghetti wired smush. And so I divided those up into the concept at the bottom. And then when the lesson competencies came next. And the curriculum came next. And then the catalog, and the whole library. So the metaphor of a tree or a library, hierarchically organized.
Right.
And the power that I have found by having these three dimensions, so you could triangulate and get to any one of those rooms. And I call this the networkable framework.
So what's an example of a room?
These rooms are all, in a theory of relativity, they are what you want them to be.
But in terms of consistency, can you assign them and can they stay assigned?
You can assign them and stay that way, or you can assign them and change them.
Okay, but if you wanted to sort of recollect a state of mind, you would need to have a stable state.
You need to have a stable space. And you also, the things that I liked about this was I had a conceptual framework that was tied to the brain. I had a structural framework that was like a cube that could be oriented to the brain. I had a functional framework, my white box, that I could understand what the dimensions are.
Yeah.
I had a networkable framework of 125 rooms in a systematic, simultaneous, symmetrical.
But did you ever get to a point where you could actually count the number of memory rooms you had?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could reliably say where each one of those rooms harbored.
Yeah. And so I said to myself, what can't I do with this?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I can't keep track of time. I can't keep track of the past, the present, the future. I can't keep track of the differences between Harvard and MIT. I can't keep things that are in my consciousness and things that are in my deep memory. And at that point, this morphed from a networkable framework into an interconnectable framework.
Okay.
And the interconnectable framework, I made 8 Rubik's Cubes. 2 in the front, like little hotels, with basements, so that's 4 in the front, and 4 in the back.
Right.
That gave me 1,000 rooms.
Right, yeah, okay. Like a big condominium or a hotel.
And I call this Charlie's conceptual cube. I called the 8 5x5 Rubik's Cubes Charlie's conceptual city.
Mm-hmm.
And you morph from one to the other. You talked about these. You're in one frame of mind, and you morph into another. so you can see how you get there.
But my favourite example of this, if it's even an example, is the cathedral. Because I was brought up loving cathedrals.
In the Bauhaus.
Well, yeah, that's right. Well, they love the cathedral too. The idea that you can go into a space and you can see the domain of light playing on everything, but you can see where the source is coming through and how it affects everything. So they use gold in the chalices and things because they wanted it to benefit from the light. So, and then you would have like every kind of level of expertise came together in this one place. That model, as you say, for the balance.
Yeah, in the education of Henry Adams, he talked about the 13th century being the period of unity.
Mm.
The Virgin Mary was the heroine, and the cathedral was the technology of the time.
Yeah.
In the 19th century, it was an age of multiplicity. And the dynamo, the electrical power generator, was the technology. So from the Virgin to the dynamo was that chapter. As we moved into the 20th century, everyone thought that the dynamo was going to be key, but it turned out that it was the electrical utility and the network, the grid, that was important for the 20th.
One analogy between the network and the cathedral is that with the cathedral, anybody could walk through it and see everything at once.
Beautiful.
And the lowest of the low was able to comprehend it.
Yeah.
They were able to interface with all of this manifestation, and it was a very powerful technology. But even the most uneducated and sort of like rudimentary mind could enjoy it.
It had the universality of a Shakespearean play, where there was something in it for every level of education.
Yeah, mind and body and spirit all nourished at the same time. Well, the idea of the network, the web, is that you social media even, that you can be aware of everything at once. But the lack of physicality is a tremendous problem.
Aha! What you just said, the lack of physicality.
You can't ground it.
For the World Wide Web and Tim Berners-Lee, the World Wide Web was a way of mapping and addressing the internet.
Yeah.
The internet was a way of locating the computers. In 1968, the web in 1989 with Tim Berners-Lee was the greatest invention of the 20th century. Was a way of mapping the internet, and he called it the World Wide Web. For the 21st century, which I think Dan Pink's right, is the conceptual age, I have come up with a way of mapping the human mind. And instead of calling it the World Wide Web, I call it Charlie's WWW. I call it Charlie's Conceptual City, CCC. And I have worked out the coordinates and the syntax to name in an alphanumeric symbolic code every location that can be in Charlie's Conceptual City.
So you've got an address finder.
I've got it's an addressable
postal codes
mind.
Right.
And so that gets you to the interconnectable framework.
So in terms of actually making, for example, some form of something like 3D analog that would be something that you could experience, you'd have to script it so that you actually reduced it to a workable number of places to visit. It can't be infinite.
Can't be. Well, it can be infinite, but it doesn't. You don't need to start there.
Right.
You have to start.
You can make it like a local phenomenon.
Physical, local, understandable, not overwhelming. For me,
it's something. I mean, I'm trying to think of somebody who would benefit. I'm jumping the gun here, but if you're sort of like wanting to get to initiate a project whereby you could actually manifest something like this that could be experienced, with a location for it. I was just listening to the CEO of